Yeah, when it's like 4 degrees outside.
No, go ahead, just in case somebody's.
You still with Columbia?
Yes, sir.
All these old Columbia people here?
A couple, and we have an architect from SRA and a couple of guys from BBL.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure we could answer whatever questions, hopefully.
Brandon?
I don't have one. I don't own one.
Are you serious?
Yep.
What, you get a mini?
It doesn't have a light on it.
I haven't been here that long.
Oh.
Nobody wants me using a laser pointer anyway. With the way my hands shake, it would just be all over the place.
You gotta get like a tripod.
I need a bipod at least.
I call a meeting of January 9th, this meeting of the Historic Resources Commission of Albany. In attendance today, I am John McEnany. I'm the acting chairman for tonight. Commissioner Hacker, Commissioner Garrity, Commissioner Pinckney, and virtually we expect Commissioner Kaplan are here, will be here for the meeting. Members of the planning department are present here. Deputy Director Aaron Glennon and Preservation Planning Planner Christopher Lohman, and representing the city's Corporation Council is Justin Thomas. Tonight's meeting of the Historic Resources Commission has one item. Prior to this meeting, project 059915 Trinity Place was removed due to the cancellation of the January 7th, 2025 Planning Board meeting, and project 609-376-378 Broadway were deferred to the February 6th, 2025 Historic Resources Commission meeting. At this time, we have no one signed up to make a public comment. Please remember to keep all questions and comments relevant to the discussion of the project before the commission, and please keep comments to 3 minutes or less. We ask that applicants introduce themselves, stating their name and who they are representing. The item number 1 for discussion, project number 606, 126 State Street. The applicant is CIDC, which stands for Community Initiatives Development Corporation and Albany City LLC and VDL Construction Services. 125 State Street, old timers will remember it as the Niagara Mohawk business building for downtown Albany. It's located within the downtown Albany Historic District. The project is before the Historic Resources Commission for a concept review. Chris Lohman, who is our preservation planner, will discuss the project further. Chris?
So as it says, they're before us for a concept review for the construction of an addition on the south elevation of the existing 126 structure adjacent to the lot at 120. The expansion includes a 57,499 square feet of newly constructed interior space connecting a 2,316 square foot pedestrian bridge to the Albany Capitol Center building located at 55 Eagle. The expansion does require partial demolition in the rear off of Howard Street. The historic office tower facade and Baldwin on State Street will not be impacted.
I guess we'll go through the panel if you all want to introduce yourselves and just, I guess, run through what you're proposing to do with the expansion for the Capitol Center, and then move on to discussion.
Okay. So I'm Brandon Stabler here on behalf of CIDC Albany Center Community Initiatives Development Corporation.
I'm Matt Dombrowski, here on behalf of CIDC Albany Center LLC.
Ken Syvertson, Syvertson and Russo Architects.
Matt Tyler with BBL Construction. And Dave Martin with BBL Construction.
I guess I can kind of start with going over just in general. I mentioned CIDC. CIDC Albany Center is a subsidiary or a special purpose entity that's wholly owned by Community Initiatives Development Corporation. I'll just use CIDC in general. So CIDC is a 501c3, a not-for-profit. They were formed I think in the 90s originally, I believe, in Pennsylvania. The purpose of CIDC is, as you can see if you look at their website, is to lessen the burdens of municipal and government entities. So basically, they kind of exist just to help finance and bring projects to fruition for certain entities that don't necessarily have the ability to construct projects on their own. So the idea here is this project would be an expansion of the Capitol Center that's located just behind 126 State Street at the corner of Eagle and Howard. As I'm sure everyone here knows, originally the Capitol Center was planned for down in Liberty Park, and it was a huge $300 million-ish project that wasn't able to kind of get off the ground. So when it was moved up the hill to Howard and Eagle, the project scope was significantly reduced to fit within, the framework of the financing that was available at the time, about I think $80-ish million project. So the Capitol Center has always envisioned.
I would not include that reason why it was moved up. I suspect it was moved for other reasons.
Oh, okay. I didn't mean to imply
a political decision that was made.
Okay. I stand corrected. So when the project was moved, I guess the Capitol Center had always envisioned that there would be an intent to expand, on its services in the future. We're now, I think, about 8.5, 9 years after the Capitol Center opened. The idea here is that the Capitol Center has indicated that they need to basically double the number of meeting rooms that they have, and they also need an exhibition space that they weren't able to originally construct in order to function fully as a convention center. So with the location of the project, an expansion, is kind of limited, right? North, south, east, and west. And this building at 126 State Street had been occupied for a while. And is now vacant. And we thought that this was a great opportunity to potentially effectuate the expansion of the project while also preserving, a nice historic resource that we have in the city of Albany. The last thing I think any of us want to see is that, a building that's vacant just, ends up falling in disrepair and you lose the asset. So the project, just to kind of describe in big picture, as Chris kind of already mentioned, the tower that you see is that there's a 6-story kind of tower in the front on State Street. That entire tower, as well as the first floor, is I think about 7,500 square feet. When you walk in, there's kind of a grand, what will be meeting space. But it's a very nice, it's a very nice space that Angela's Bridal has occupied, and I think some events have been held in there. It was previously a bank. So we would keep the tower. We're basically not doing anything with the tower, other than there are a couple of minor repairs around the main entrance to the limestone, and then there's one of the Hallian ties, the flag ties, is missing off of the building. So we're hoping that we can scour the building and maybe we find all or part of it. But if not, we would propose to have that recast and put on the front of the building. Other than that,
Where is that missing?
There are 2 flagpoles that you can kind of see off the building. I believe the one on the right is still there. The one on the left is missing. So the interior of the space in the tower, the Capitol Center would probably just be looking to maybe replace carpet and do a little touch-up paint, et cetera. But there's no renovations planned for that nice historic space. Sure.
Got metal, are those windows and doors metal?
The
Existing window.
Copper clad, I think they are. Yeah.
You keeping those?
Oh,
we
yeah.
are, yeah, we're keeping.
What about the front doors, entry doors? That's some type of bronze or brass?
Yeah, they stay as well.
Yeah, the intention here is really, other than a few minor repairs around the main entrance to the limestone and, that tie for the flag, we really are not touching anything. To include, I guess it's a good time to bring this up, if this is a Capitol Center expansion, they obviously would love to have a presence on State Street, which they don't have now, they're kind of hidden. With having the public coming in and out of the building, one of the important things to consider is an accessible entry to the building. That's not something that's possible without actually modifying that facade. So part of our plan is, I think we can see, at least in some of the plans that we'll show you and maybe renderings, is just around to the right side of the building. We're planning to add an accessible entrance on the western side of the building. That way we don't have to mess at all with the historic facade, and we can still satisfy
Or
it.
the handicap accessibility problem.
Right.
And
Right.
this doesn't show up, but right around that corner right there is the entry that he's talking about.
You could have seen it on the other photograph that was looking east.
Yeah. Yep. So
Yeah, right.
right.
Yeah.
Right there.
Perfect. So that's and if we stay on this photo, I think this will be good. So the tower stays. We talked about that. The facade. The rest of this building. Originally, we thought the building was constructed in 2 different times, because if you look at the Howard Street facade, it is not nearly as grand. It clearly was a secondary facade. But we did find out, we've been working with Beth Seelig at Hudson Cultural on this project, and she's done some reports and done some research for us. And what she found out is that the building appears to have all been constructed at the same time. I don't remember the year. But that whole 1 to 2 story portion in the back, all the gray that you see, was originally, it was all back of house. This was a municipal gas company. It was originally built for them. It was all back of the house storage, record storage, processing, and things like that, as well as mechanical space. So for this project, what we're basically trying to do, and you'll see this in some of the renderings later on, is for all intents and purposes, we're constructing 2 new floors on top of this building. And then we are also expanding beyond, the view in this photo. The building next door at 120 State Street, on the corner of Lodge and State, is the Trooper PBA building. So here's a view of the back from Howard and Lodge. So you'll see to the right, the red brick, that's the back of the Trooper PBA building, and you see the Troopers surface parking lot there. So we're going to be constructing this addition to 126, and that'll span over that existing Trooper parking lot. So CIDC will purchase a portion of that parking lot from the Troopers. That's under contract already. The Troopers have been great to work with. And we build the building, and then the Troopers continue to park underneath it. They'll just now have covered parking, basically. So they'll have a permanent easement. And then on the left side of the photo here, after we construct 2 stories on top of the building, we'll have I think it was referred to as a pedestrian walkway or pedestrian bridge. We're kind of referring to it as more of a little bit more of a grand walkway. It'll be exactly the same construction as the bridge that you can kind of see in the distance that connects the Howard Street 67 Howard parking garage to the existing Capitol Center. So the construction, materials would be proposed to be the same. The only difference here is that we want to make this walkway wider, because one of the things that was important to the Capitol Center is that this will connect directly to their meeting level in the Capitol Center, and they have 5 meeting rooms. So we want this to feel like an extension of that meeting level, so we want it to be nice and inviting. And I guess that's, I feel like I've been talking for a long time. We can scroll through and maybe talk about individual renderings, photos, et cetera, or we can pause and you can ask questions.
It's pretty large, man.
The building's about 45-ish thousand square feet now, yeah, and then it's a 57,000 square foot addition, so yeah. This will be a really nice.
So the 2 properties will basically consuming 60%, 70% of the back of these properties.
You mean like buildable area, like on the lot? Yes, sir, yeah. So 26 State Street on the opposite side here, that first photo that you mentioned, Mr. Pinckney, when you're looking east, there's a parking lot there. There's that little brick wall. So that's actually something I didn't bring up. So that brick wall goes away because I think everybody will agree it's not necessarily appropriate. It doesn't really fit the streetscape. And we have a rendering later on where it'll show, there we go. So we've got a courtyard that's approximate, it's the width between Capitol Bank there and 126 State Street, the full width, and it goes back around 90 feet. So that we're kind of proposing as a courtyard kind of garden with that tower that you see is a circulation tower for the new addition. So the stairwell and the elevators will be in there, but that we kept off State Street. We wanted that recessed. We realized this is an addition to a historic building. We don't want the addition to look like we're trying to make it a historic building. I don't presume to think that you would like that either. But we also didn't think it was appropriate to have a more contemporary facade built right up on State Street next to these 2 historic facades, being 126 and 132 State.
I like the recess. Personally,
Yeah.
Architecturally, historic preservation, it sits back, it doesn't, it's not trying to compete.
Right.
Historic buildings,
And-
sort of push back.
And this was important to the Capitol Center. Monica Kuzieski, the director, and the board has been involved, and Shannon Leibowitz, who is the director of sales, I believe is her title. Everybody's really excited about introducing a courtyard here because you don't really see that. I think across the street by the church there's a little courtyard, but it's nice to have a little bit of greenery in downtown. So we're hoping that works out really nicely.
Just out of curiosity, and forgive me because I'm not in any way, shape, or form a builder or anything like that. That render of that building right there, that is the structure the pedestrian walkway will connect to?
Not directly. So that's kind of, when we look in plan view, you'll be able to see a little better. See the little pinkish kind of part at the bottom of the page? That's what you're looking at. You're looking at the left side of that from State Street. The pedestrian walkway actually connects one level above this, so it'll be probably the next, that's the ground level. See that diagonal piece? That's the walkway from the Capitol Center.
So to the left is State Street.
Correct. And all the kind of grayed out area with the grid on it on the left, that's the existing tower. The rest of the gray with the diagonal hatching is the portion of 126 State that is just remaining.
So what about the corner building on State and Howard, is it? Where is that in here?
The lodge, the
State
state
Lodge?
troopers
State
building.
Lodge, yeah.
That's not shown here. We're not proposing to do anything with that building directly. But if there's a site plan in here that
Yeah, there is.
you'll be able to see it on the site plan. So we're flipped around now. State Street's on the top, running left and right.
Okay.
That building at the top right with the diagonal hatching through it is the trooper building. And the red outline is what will be the property line for 126. You'll see a little peninsula area there on the right. That's the portion of the trooper lot that's being purchased by CIDC.
So that corner building on Lodge and State, that's separate from,
Completely separate.
New construction connected
Correct.
to it.
And CIDC won't own that. The New York State Trooper PBA Holdings LLC, I think, owns it. They'll continue owning it. The troopers will continue their operations out of that building. So here's, is that Wendell? Yeah, so we're on Wendell or Wendell Street. We're looking towards the rear facade of the addition, showing the walkway coming in on the left. And the two new floors with the windows, the top one being the exhibition space. So basically that's just a big rectangle inside that can be configured based on needs. And then the lower set of windows looks into to the meeting room level, where there'll be 5 new meeting rooms and some pre-function space. And here, I guess maybe is a good time to just touch on materials, and Ken can, certainly, actually Ken,
Yeah.
you probably why don't you just do it?
Okay, there we go. So that's pretty easy. If anybody's familiar with the existing center, it has brick, stucco. So what we've done is we picked a brick. The plan is to anchor the building on the site with the existing brick that you find on the Capitol Center. And then we're going to have if you kind of zoom in, but we're going to have storefront glass, and then we're also going to have a light synthetic stucco, but with a little bit different joint pattern to express a little bit of verticality to the building.
Is this, what's the street that car is on?
Wendell.
It would be kind of along this side.
That's Little Wendell Street?
Yes. Yeah, to the right where that hedgerow is, there's actually that existing
Dilapidated.
old one deck, 1-story,
Yeah.
or 2-story garage.
As artistic liberty, taking that out.
Yeah, we took it out so you could see the whole facade. That's,
Yeah. That's why it threw me off.
and also Wendell is it's actually sloped.
It's desperately strong. I mean, I can tell you
Yes.
a story on it. Somebody threw a party back 100 years ago, and the person who was elected to office, the family said, "You have your reception in your own home. Are you ashamed of this little wooden house that was in the middle of the block?" And they did it for opening day, which is this type of weather. And all of the carriages slid down backwards because it was so steep, so nobody could get up or down. It was,
Oh, wow.
Wendell Street was a very, very steep street, more of an alley than a street. What you're showing there is something very different that car is on.
Yeah, and please accept our apologies for that. The intent was to be able to show as much of the facade of the new building as opposed to accurate, depiction of what was around.
Do you anticipate making the street that wide?
Up at that end, it is wider. It necks down. It's 2-way right there until you can go into the Capitol Center, and then once you get past the entrance to the Capitol Center garage, it does neck down to a single lane. But we're not proposing any changes to the street.
Okay.
Marilyn does have a question.
Oh, great.
Marilyn.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I think we have to turn the volume up on this. I can barely hear it.
Can you hear me?
We can
Now?
barely turn up the volume here. Okay.
Yes, I'm good. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Hello. Hi, all. Commissioner Kaplan. Chris and Aaron, I have a question for you. The boundaries of the district go how far to the south of State Street relative to Lodge and Howard?
So
Howard, it is
Howard Street is the boundary, so all of, I mean, most of the buildings run from State to Howard, and those back walls are pretty much all just within the boundary.
The facade that's being, part that would be demoed on the backside is the boundary facade for the district.
Say that one more time. I apologize for our audio complications.
The facade that would be visible from the boundary on Howard is the proposed demolition.
Correct. So, okay, so I guess what we have, if I understand this correctly, is a demolition of a big chunk of the building at 126 State Street. And then in addition to that, well, also, I won't use it, also, we have new construction at Lodge and Howard Streets, right? And so part of the discussion will be the compatibility of scale, material, et cetera, at those elevations.
There's
Is
also,
that a way to define our engagement?
is also described as putting a couple of flights above the existing flight of that long, narrow addition to the original. Is it being
Yes.
built up, or is it demolishing what's there and building brand new construction?
It's a little bit of both, and I'll explain that. So the demolition portion of the project is this rear facade that exists that you don't see in this rendering. There's that facade.
Yes.
We are taking, we're proposing to take a wedge out of this from top to bottom that ranges from about 3 feet on one side to 8 feet on the other side, because the building and the property line are not square. So we're trying to square up the building and get accessible entrances in the back. So the only demolition of this facade it's the facade, as well as 3 to 8 feet behind it.
Okay.
So we're not proposing to demolish the entirety of that back portion of 126. And then the second story in this photo, which is really the State Street elevation or floor one, what we're looking at is floor one and basement on the existing building. So floor one at the top there, in order to line the new construction up and the walkway to connect to the existing meeting room level, that all needs to be on one level so that it feels like one space. We do need to take down the top, I believe, is it 3 or 4 feet?
It's about to the top of the windows.
Yeah, so 3 to 4 feet of the existing building. But the basement floor, the first floor, the side walls, that's all going to remain. So it's, I guess, I don't know really what the right terminology is, but it's a select demolition of a portion of the back of that building. It's certainly, I believe I know one of the things that we talked about with planning was, does it require a demolition review? And that's if you're proposing to demolish more than 10% of the structure, and we're well below the 10% of the structure, because I know we don't have to go for that demolition review.
So, but within the scope of the whole project is where the demolition falls under the HRC.
Yes.
In terms of it.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't arguing that, it's not within your scope to look at. I just wanted to explain what it is.
What we're looking at here would essentially disappear, whether it's partially demolished on top to be the right angle for the floor that it's going to be joining up with the bridge and the.
Correct.
So everything we is going to be gone.
Correct,
It'll be either covered over or shortened on the top.
correct.
My next question is, the funding for the project, is there federal preservation review or state preservation review that will be included?
So,
Do you want me to give you a little more information, or do you understand the question, the intent?
federal review, the proposed a portion of the funding would be is anticipated to come in the form of a grant from Empire State Development.
Yeah.
So that figure of, I think it's 14.09 review with SHPO.
That's my question. That's exactly my question. Yeah.
Yes. And we have engaged with SHPO. We spoke with Weston Davey on the above ground. We had a kind of an informal meeting with Weston, and we showed him what the intent was, just to kind of brief him on it before we had Hudson Cultural just submit reports through Chris. And he had to find his way through it. So it was just a very brief, less than this, kind of an introduction. But we submitted a PRR on Chris. They responded. They asked us for additional information to include, historic building report and the phase 1A archaeological, which we've completed and submitted. Those are currently under review right now.
Yeah. I actually have it. I was able to get it from Chris.
Oh, really?
today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
I'm not a contact, so I couldn't see any,
Correspondence.
right, but
Yeah.
I have a report here.
Yeah, good. You've probably read a lot
Yeah.
of the information in there before, but it is,
Yeah, no,
it
it
is
is,
interesting.
it is
reading.
great
Yeah.
when it's my turn to talk about the archaeology now. I'll
Okay.
double back.
Yeah.
And then my last question / comment, if you could go back to one of the renderings from State Street, that would be great. Early, it was maybe one of the first. Yeah, that's this one right here. So is there any work that you envision on that west elevation of 126? Because as I understood you to speak, you envision a garden, an open space, as being a significant part of this project's treatment along State Street, which of course is a very important street, and yet the west elevation of 126, as shown there, is a little underwhelming, if I may. The accessible entrance to this major development is pretty, to me, underwhelming. And then in addition, I guess the question is there any work or is there any concern on your part with the condition of the east elevation of the Capitol Bank project? Because those are the important enclosing walls to your proposed new entrance. And maybe you could go now. I think that other image that you just had that I didn't see before is a little closer view there.
Yeah.
Into the garden. Yeah.
So I think I remember all of the specific questions. So firstly, there is no concern about the structural integrity of either of the adjoining walls to the courtyard. 132 State Street, we actually did that. That's our project from before, and there are no concerns with the structural integrity. There are no planned modifications to that. I remember when we were going through the design process for that project, we worked with the HRC. I think Mr. Pinckney was the only member who was the same at the time. And there are some shadows of one of the two existing buildings that used to infill this gap.
Right.
That are on the east facade of 132. And so we made sure that we didn't put windows in those shadow lines, and you can still see those. Then flipping over to the western facade of western elevation of 126, there have certainly been things kicked around and talked about from various, members of the Capitol Center team on what might be able to be done there to kind of liven the space up a little bit. But as of now, there are no concerns about the structure. That is kind of a stucco that was applied over brick, and it's sound, and we don't currently have any proposed plans to paint it or change it in any way. I suspect that might be something that the HRC may want to comment on, and maybe down the road, the intention here would be that any signage associated with the project would be viewed as a separate project that comes back before the HRC. We're just not there yet. There's been some talk about potentially some sort of a mural maybe on that gray, stucco area, but we just, that's kind of a sensitive thing, and we weren't sure how that would be viewed, so we're open to suggestions.
I
Did I
guess
hit
if
every?
you back up to that previous rendering. Yeah. Underwhelmed by the appearance, in particular, trying to create, of course, such an important entranceway. And then the last question I have, and I apologize for asking you to go back and forth, but now if you can go to the one we were just at. What's the material proposed? Because what is that stucco that we've got on this elevation?
Brick on the first floor, stucco on the floors 2 and 3.
Okay. This is just my own personal comments, and of course, we're just starting conversations, and I don't know the opinions of the other commissioners, but whereas I understand the want to connect to the Capitol Center and the materials, particularly as you get closer to the Capitol Center, I don't find this, even though it's set back, to be reflective of the quality of materials along State Street. And even if we change the colors of the stucco, and I don't know what that metal panel is at the top, but I would ask for the other commissioners their opinions, but I think that something with a little more elegance of material and more compatible in material with what else we see along State Street, because this is new construction that we're trying, that we'll be reviewing. And so something that's more durable and more in keeping with the quality and the materials along State Street, I think would be appropriate to consider.
Possibly stone, possibly brick. Well,
Yes, yes. A bit more detailing. I mean, that cornice looks kind of like there's no cornice. We just painted it white to distinguish, but it's not a highly designed contemporary structure really that we're seeing there either. So there's different approaches, but I think a flat stucco doesn't, in my opinion, do it. It's neither a great new modern design, nor is it of traditional quality materials as reflected along State Street. And there's quite a window in between those in terms of the design approach. But I don't think this meets the needs of a State Street facade, even if it is recessed. Again, my opinion, the commission members, we haven't all spoken to that yet.
I do agree about the material. Stucco is not a common material on the streetscape. Brick or stone, maybe gray brick, in keeping with the gray color. That is, which would be part of the gray stucco on the Capitol Center building. Stone panel, gray, brick, gray, or light gray. But I do agree, I do concur with the material selection.
I think there's many materials, as you're running through the list, I think there's many materials that would be appropriate, but a contemporary stucco with, for the reasons I already spoke to, I think are less than an ideal solution here.
You think you'd prefer like if that was all glass to be more contemporary versus historic?
Well, you can back up now to that other slide, which is helpful. And we're regularly reminded that our role is to review and respond rather than to be the designers. But I think if that's the approach that you all want to take as the from a construction and from an owner's perspective, happy to look, happy to respond. But I don't think the stucco facade as we see here is appropriate given the quality of these buildings, the quality of the materials that they use. And so how you want to talk about the material and or the design or a very well designed contemporary new structure. And I don't even know what on State Street, what would be a model there. I'm kind of thinking, but that's for you to chew over. I just don't find stucco an appropriate material here for this prominent location and project.
Glass is a possibility.
I think you may also want to make a statement that this new building, which is recessed and has apparently a very gracious and interesting courtyard, it's a great entrance for that building. And it's okay, there's a warmth in the natural brick that's on the east side of the Capitol Bank building. You want to be careful that it doesn't look like the back door. Mm-hmm. The alternative is to have a new front door on the most prestigious street that we have in the capital city, which is State Street. And so you want to have certain graciousness that it's a second and another available entrance, but not the back door that's in an alley somewhere. So it's something to consider. I find it troublesome, and I noticed nobody gave us a view looking to the southeast because it's ugly. It's that gray paint or painted stucco or whatever with the shadow of a building that once was. Mm-hmm. And more troublesome, yes, you can talk about you wish you could put in ivy and make it go away, but obviously that isn't going to work. But then I see this little door cut through that goes into the courtyard. And I think there's a reason for that. It would work for traffic flow for whatever reason. But is that going to be an important door if I go 10 feet in and take a left and go into the base of the tower building? Is that an important? Because right now it looks like an escape hatch if there's a fire alarm type of purpose. Right.
Yeah, I don't think, and I certainly wouldn't want to speak for the ACCA on this, and maybe at a future meeting, if it's appropriate to bring, the director, we could do that. But our understanding of how this facility will work is that really the main entrance to the Capitol Center still remains the main entrance on Eagle Street. This is clearly an extension. There will be, people coming and going here, but this is not going to be a main entrance. If you know that you're going to an event that is held on that first floor, then, and you're out on State Street already, you may enter that way. But the majority of the traffic that's going to flow to this facility is going to flow through the bridge or in through the courtyard, directly to the circulation tower that's in there. Because what's
the purpose of the little building on the old gas company building? Is that door there now?
That's a new handicapped accessible door.
Right now, this building isn't handicap accessible.
Oh, right. That's the only reason for
that door.
Yeah.
My assumption was that was done for handicap reasons, and I was thinking in my mind's eye that there were stairs going up to the original entrance to the gas company, but it's almost on It's almost on a ground level.
Right, it is. We're proposing to add that door. It doesn't exist right now. The one on the side of the building in the gray.
Yeah.
We're proposing to add that, and the only reason we're proposing to add that is because we don't want to try to modify the main facade of 126, and there are stairs that go up to that middle entrance.
Yeah.
And there's a smaller door off to on the very right that has a ramp to it that is not an accessible ramp, but it's also a very narrow door, and we don't want to modify the facade because it's a historic facade. So working with the grades on State Street, in addition to the fact that one thing you can't see is on the right side of the existing facade, where that narrow door is I was just talking about, there's a huge National Grid electricity vault that's under the sidewalk. So even if we wanted to modify the grades on State Street to try to make an accessible ramp, we can't do that without ripping out that entire vault and moving it. And we found out from National Grid that that vault doesn't just serve our building, it serves multiple buildings. So it'd be a huge undertaking. If we can sneak that door in, on the western elevation, then that works from an accessibility standpoint. And we kind of worked it in with the design of the courtyard. I'm not sure how well you can see it on the zoomed in.
You don't see it on that. So
yeah, because I think we were looking the wrong.
It's hard to say, but it just looks like one thing the handicapped community hates is the walk around the back way for you.
Right.
And so it should have an identity in its own right, that you feel it was where everybody should walk in and be welcome, not just the people with the wheelchairs.
Right.
And what you've got there, and it's not on the right angle to see, is something which says something that's done for legal purposes or
right.
fire escape concerns or things like that. It should have an identity that anybody, handicapped or otherwise, would feel they're walking into something important.
Okay.
I would agree. I think that was well stated. Can we see the floor plan that shows us how all this circulation at 126 and then it's the all of it works together? I guess it's the first floor. And what will happen in 126? The whole existing portion, what you're calling the ground floor level plan here to remain. How will that space be used?
So the first floor, the State Street grade level entrance, which is the next slide. Oh, we're not showing it there.
I think it's what you had isn't that ground floor? What you call ground floor?
Ground.
That's the right plan.
Yeah, is it ground?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, we're not really showing a lot of detail there. So, but to answer your question, that whole kind of grade area with the diagonal hatching, that's going to serve as a smaller event space or a pre-function space for certain events that may be happening. Maybe there's something that spills out into the courtyard and is inside the historic lobby of the bank. And then the floors 2 through 6 above, those are going to be used as some offices for the Capitol Center staff, as well as there's a really nice boardroom with a fireplace on, I don't remember which floor it is.
2 or 3.
So that one could also serve as space that the Capitol Center could, lease out to somebody if they wanted to host some sort of a meeting, or it could just be used as a conference room for the Capitol Center staff.
But on the ground, what was called the ground floor, where we started this conversation, so that door that you've shown on its west elevation for accessibility, really, as the courtyard spills out, as you said, as there's kind of space flow between the existing 126 ground floor space, and we've seen interior photographs of that, and the courtyard, without competing with the primary entrance, as Commissioner McEnany just spoke to, that door is kind of understated for its possibilities and its purpose. Yeah, I would agree.
It's really not for the Capitol Center. It's more for the office tower. The pink area, that's kind of the main circulation tower. So if you're coming off of State Street, you're going to walk through the courtyard and you see the stair tower and the elevator bank. That's kind of your main entrance into this center. That other handicap entrance that we're showing is really just for the office tower, and there is no, you can kind of see there's a lobby in the existing stair in that cross-hatched area. You know, that's what that's for.
Couldn't you use that pinkish area for handicap accessibility and just delete that little side door?
Sure.
But then you have your grand entrance, you know, the handicap will feel just as important as anybody else.
We would save money, so that'd be a fantastic idea.
It also would enhance accessible thought, where if you trace a line to get from that entrance to the bottom left, let's say I enter through that door, trace a line to go to the elevators for me to still go up, not knowing I could enter through those primary doors.
Right.
This may also help Commissioner McKenna's point of not making it feel like an afterthought entrance.
Mm-hmm.
Is you have to take a longer route to get to the elevator if you go through what is considered the ADA door versus just entering through the primary to the elevator.
You do. However, the tower, there's an elevator in that main lobby by the little L-shaped stair. There's an elevator there that takes you up and down into the tower. But I mean, it's certainly something that we could discuss with the tenant, the ultimate tenant, to find out if they would be okay with deleting that door. Also, if they would like to keep it, we can look at making some modifications to it to make it a little bit more, prominent. And I would think that we'd love to hear some feedback too, on, what are some ideas for how that might look?
More class.
More of that.
I'm a proponent of class.
Okay.
Right.
I think there's very, very positive things going on here. It was a shame that they moved the location of the Capitol Center from down in the flats where it was originally done. And the reason it was located there is it meant it could be doubled at any time. And that made a lot of people nervous, particularly if they were from another city further to the west of here, that they would just as soon not have competition in the state capital, which would be as big as some of the others. So putting it up here in a limited position, it made it difficult to expand. Somehow we're figuring a way to do it. The thing about conventions is anybody can have a convention with not only hundreds, but thousands of people. The problem with a convention as opposed to an event that's taking place is that you then want to take the larger the number, the more small breakout rooms you want for workshops and discussions and so on. And that's the part that people don't think of. That's why the original Knickerbocker Arena is not a convention center. Mm-hmm. It's a different thing altogether. And what this does is it expands, because we're losing groups that don't have smaller areas to have exhibitry and have workshops and so on. And that's what's going on here. I think the idea of the indentation, instead of trying to go flush with State Street and putting in a sense of intimacy where we can put in trees and flowers and things like that, and yet not break up the State Street facades, but actually having something intimate that people will want to gather and meet somebody and have a cup of coffee, let's go outside and talk about this, works out very, very well. I get troubled when I see that enormous west wall, which is going to be very important, and you're going to see it from the Capitol looking down in as soon as you start to go in on State Street, and it could be a real eyesore and will clash with however good the improvements are made in different directions. But it's not something that we have to decide here and now, or us. I think we need to go back to other thoughts and have people say, what's the best way to enhance that alternate entrance? It's not the main entrance, but it's an important entrance. And I think we all need to think about it and get other thoughts as well.
You have any elevation drawings of the Howard Street elevation, along with the Wellington Hotel? You know, that whole block from Eagle to Howard, just to see how that new addition
I don't think
plugs into.
I don't think you'll see it because you got the parking garage that comes all the way out, and you got a bridge, the identical, you can call it the sister bridge. I don't know if you're looking down.
Looking north on Howard Street, if we start at Eagle and we move to the east, the first building we see is the narrower facade of the Renaissance, the Whit Clinton building. Right next to that is the parking garage. Immediately adjacent to the parking garage is this little parking lot next to 126 State Street. So we don't see the backs of any of those Wellington Row buildings, really. But we don't have anything included in this presentation for that, to answer your question.
So the primary, I think you spoke to this as you started, but we've had so much conversation, I lost track of it. The primary function of the new space of this project and the space that will be created is what? It's storage on how many levels? Yeah, it's a loading dock, it's storage. What's the primary function here?
The primary function is an exhibition space of about 21-ish thousand square feet, which is the top floor of the addition. And then the first floor of the addition, so there, the upper level, that purple is exhibition. The blue at the bottom is kind of a pre-function space for that exhibition space. And then the rest of that floor is all back of house, kitchen areas, restrooms to serve whatever's in the exhibition space. The level below that, primary function of that level is to basically double the meeting rooms. So we have potential for 5 meeting rooms or one larger one, as well as the blue area being pre-function space and a nice lobby and, magenta or whatever that color is to the left. So exhibition, meeting, pre-function, and then a portion of the existing tower and grand, historic lobby would be meeting or pre-function or event space, as well as some office space for the Capitol Center. And then what we haven't really seen yet is this storage, and I don't know, I can't read what it says, but there is a kitchen on this level. I think that's the bottom right. I think we have some floor plans that are a little bit more developed than this now, but so there's loading dock, a receiving area, and then some storage for the things that are received and to store tables and chairs and things like that, and food, a kitchen to support the events that are happening in the historic portion of the building and the meeting and exhibition space.
And there's new toilet rooms to serve the historic lobby, ballroom, whatever we want to call it.
It's in that little rectangle to the left there on the bottom, right?
Yep, those serve everything on the left.
So where it says existing to remain, in a way, what I've heard discussed was when we spoke about the potential handicapped accessible door, et cetera, that is that portion of the existing historic building really part of your project, or is it not?
It is. It is. On this level that we're looking at now, that whole gray polygon, it's not a rectangle because it's got a little bend in it.
Yeah.
That whole 7,500 square feet or whatever it is, it's approximately 7,500, I believe. That's the lobby, the grand historic lobby that you would walk into. Originally, there were bankers in there and Angela's Bridal. So that stays as a pre-function or a small function space as part of the Capitol Center. Below that there's a basement under that 7,000 square feet, and there's mechanical space. That's where the electrical room is, water,
Right.
etc. Here's building section.
I guess it's kind of interesting because I think maybe the challenge here is that whereas that's one of the that's a grand space along State Street, where we will be, I assume, primarily focused on State Street, but to some degree, and someone else said this before me, your focus of the project is not that space, and in fact, what the new construction and the whole orientation all is, this is really an expansion of the Capitol Center moving to the north, and it's back, and you're, to some degree, it's the back entrance to your project expansion, and that maybe is what we're kind of coming to grips with, or I am, is to us, it's a primary elevation and along State Street, our most prominent street, and yet it's really the back end of your project. So I think that might be a little bit of the conversation as we move forward as to if there's a conflict, or if there's a meeting place for those things. Is that the case? So yeah, again, we don't deal with the interior of 126 State, and yet the fact that it's just a little gray area and maybe pre-function, this really is being shown as as I said, it's kind of the backside to your project expansion, which is an interesting situation from a design review standpoint.
See, what I would say is that we actually have two fronts, right? The Capitol Center now has their main entrance that exists, and also this new main entrance. So it's not the back. It's two fronts.
Okay, that's good. That's great. It doesn't feel like it in terms of the rendering that we saw, and no proposed treatment to the west wall of 126, and the little bit of discussion of the connection between your project and a prominent interior first floor space. But that's good to hear.
You don't want that lobby, the existing historic lobby, to be the main entrance. You want that to be space. The entrance is off to the right-hand side. So that's the new building.
Just really quickly, don't mean to interrupt. Since there's no action being taken tonight, I'm going to head out. I just wanted to mention, though, for everyone, you guys are probably going to need an easement, I assume, for the pedestrian walkway at some point. So I'll just hand out the card.
Oh, yeah, I'll take that. And
I corrected my email. I got one for each of you. There you go. But yeah, feel free to just send me an email, give me a call, whatever.
Yes.
I imagine it'll be down the line. That's, I think, the only thing I can help with here, though. So I just wanted to share that little bit. Sorry, Marilyn. You're good
No,
to go.
that's okay. I'm just about done. Thank you, though.
So one of the exciting things about this is that there's multiple ways to use the space now, and the convention center can operate as one huge space with everything that they have existing and new, or they can break out into a series of rooms. So at points, the main entry on 126 is going to be used for their largest events. When they have their largest events, people are going to come in that main entry. They're going to come through the historic lobby and then go up to the meeting rooms and up to the exhibition hall. if that space is used for smaller events, then people are gonna come through the recessed courtyard. So it's exciting, but it's also a difficult way to approach it because there's so many different ways that this space can operate, which is exciting for them because now they get to use it more. And they can set their customers up in so many different ways. They're trying to figure out how it all works as well.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I think the impact, the physical impact on State Street is extremely minimal. Just by pushing that connecting piece way back, I consider it very minimal. And the new construction on Howard, that whole street doesn't have too much historic, I shouldn't say importance, but visual importance, So I think we can, play around a little bit with, I was at first thinking of recessing those windows on the Howard Street elevation because all over in all these historic buildings, the windows are pushed back, just like from the face of the building. And this elevation looks too flat, There may be some other design ideas later on in the future, but looking at it quickly, it looks okay to me, But again, this is just the beginning of this review cycle. But one thing I do suggest you think about is recessing the windows. Like you see the windows of the building to the east. All the historic buildings have some recessed windows, and this is a brand new facade, brand new idea. There may be some suggestions maybe about a slightly different cornice. Nothing to replicate a historic wood cornice, but something a little bit more detailed.
Okay.
I think it's a great project.
Me too.
I think it's heading in the right direction. It's using up space. It's expanding the Capitol Center, and it's progress.
Yeah.
Could I take one last look at the plan to how the existing Capitol Center meets this new addition to see where the bridge is located? Is the bridge just to the west of where
Site plan
Wendell
would probably
Street
be the
comes out?
best.
Where would Wendell Street be? Would it-
Let me pull up the site plan, yeah.
Yeah, that'll give you a great.
Right here.
So right at Wendell.
Okay, that's all I need to understand. Yep. And there is an alleyway on the left when you look at that, and I'm not sure I understand how that works. There's in a different drawing that didn't have all the detail. It was almost like a driveway that went all the way into the interior.
Up 126
Yeah.
towards State Street.
No, there's one that's just black and white and doesn't have all the, it's a floor plan, if you will. It looks like something is open space next to the property that belongs to Capital Bank.
Yeah, maybe this.
You see see how that looks like an alley coming in?
Yes, that's the loading dock. So that's where the semi would back in
Oh, okay.
and be out of the street.
That's exactly what it is. It's because loading dock was labeled, and then there's the hard line. That's where you're loading onto. You see, but-
Right.
Okay, I understand that. And is there open space that you can walk into the courtyard by going around that?
No, there's really not meant to be a back entry to the courtyard, if that's what you're asking.
Well,
This
They don't
is
want
more of
people
a-
cutting through.
Yeah.
But it looks like there's empty space, an alleyway. The new building that we saw, the one that we said shouldn't be stucco and should be It looks like a dead space where people can walk in between.
See the red line?
Yeah.
It's the property.
That's the property line. So right to the left of it is the entrance into the parking garage. And I guess there would be a little bit of an open space between that stair and the property line.
Yes.
And that fence. There potentially could be a gate to get into the back of the courtyard if you thought that was important.
There is some dead space there.
There is.
Yeah,
I think maybe one of the most challenging parts about connecting pedestrians to the back of the courtyard is there is a need for a standby generator. And that, I think, is what's shown there hatched next to the circulation tower.
That's why that extra space is. Thank you.
You have elevations of the large street?
We do.
Large, right?
Yes. That's not the right elevation.
Oh, that's
That's
old.
that's
There was, I think, yeah, this is,
It looks more like, it was Howard. Yeah, those are old. Next time we'll have newer ones.
it was updated as part of the HRC application. These may have been the drawings that were in the planning application because our planning application was in.
I have
About
a
a
printed
month
copy
earlier.
here if you just want to look at it. We can, yeah. These were submitted to, for the site plan application. So that's, I don't know who, you asked about Wall Street.
Why didn't I get it?
Well, because I made a wrong answer.
I will eventually do it.
Yeah, that's even the wrong elevation. The rendering is much more reflective of what the elevation is.
Wait, that's not the most current? Is that 1219?
This is, these windows that's the drawing that they want to look at for a while.
Yeah, that's right, that's what I showed.
Right.
120 State Street, Albany County, Office House, is a substantial building in its own right. And I think we do want to make sure that the other side of Lodge Street is of equal quality. And we haven't seen that done right up here.
This elevation,
This.
You know, we have to have equal
Yeah, like
respect for what you see when you look out the windows
Sure.
of 120 State Street.
That's the same, that's the 1219.
Similar quality buildings, not to be tall.
Yeah, you don't want to see the chicken scratch.
So the outline of the old building on 126 State Street doesn't excite anybody on your side of the table. Because we kind of looked at it and said, oh, that tells a story of, there used to be a building and that's the shape of it. If you think there's some latitude of doing something with that, I'm sure we can come up with something.
I believe, and again, not wanting to speak for the Capitol Center, I believe the Capitol Center would be very excited about somehow being able to turn that gray blob into a nice mural of some sort.
If it's like some of the murals that we put on that are all cartoon art, that would really be sad to have near the state capitol building. We are heavy into geography and or geometric, metric, and I mean, I've been in other places in this country where they're magnificent. They take your breath away. The mural that we have that's inside in the Capitol is more traditional. But I think in something like this, you wouldn't want the brightest colors in the world.
Right.
I think we probably want to see what the solution is.
Right.
The HRC has approved numerous murals throughout downtown Albany and other areas. when the commission looks at them, they're not, reviewing the content, they're reviewing, material, maintenance, how does it apply to the building, so. And I believe that the Albany Center Gallery has worked with numerous artists throughout the Capital District and New York to create a program together.
Yeah, I think that was part of the discussions that I believe may be going on in the background, but again, I, don't want to speak for them.
Public art is always a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, but art and context, they do work together.
Yes.
No Mickey Mouse.
No.
Bluebirds.
Maybe.
Now,
And there's a context.
I don't know if you're saying it in jest about covering it with ivy. Is that
No, I've always felt that way, but I know in my heart of heart that the ivy will destroy the masonry, so.
Right.
It would be an interesting approach if somebody would have to protect the masonry and still manage to have ivy, but I've yet to see it done here.
Yeah.
So that gray is is a reflection of the building that was next to it, historic.
Yes. I think when that building was demolished, there wasn't the nice, creamish colored brick there, like there is above, and so it was just stucco. I guess, is it just gray stucco, or was it painted gray after the fact?
I don't know if
It's
we've
just a
really,
parch, it's a cement parch coat.
yeah. Depends which building was there first is what is the nice elevation, right? So you're overhand laying it, you got nasty mortar joints and.
It's probably number 2, 3, or 4 that
Right.
were up on that wall. So.
So however it's treated, should still reflect that building shape.
Yes.
There really could be a way to, trestles could be created. I don't know if they're going to be attached to the masonry. You could get some ivory to grow, but it's going to have to be off the brick, and eventually it'll just outgrow itself probably. I don't know how much sun it's going to get.
I think
Yeah.
this is,
It's going to get 15 minutes of afternoon sun before Capital Bank blocks the rest of it, right?
the Capital Bank wall is great. Good earth tones, and it's warming to people. It creates that center of like your own backyard. On the other building, it's just an intrusion.
I wonder if you could ever
I think we all agree.
project something onto it.
Are there any other comments?
Archaeology. Yes, archaeology.
Welcome to whoever.
I was able to go on to Chris today, the SHPO website.
Yep.
And I was able to get Beth Selig's archaeological report, Phase 1A archaeological report. She is from Hudson Cultural Services. That's her company, Hudson Cultural Services. So she addressed the archaeology, and I just wanted to read just a few paragraphs from her summary and recommendation section. And this report is recent. It's from October of 2024. In November of 2024, Hudson Cultural Services completed a Phase 1A literature search and sensitivity assessment for the Albany Capitol Center expansion project. The results of the literature search indicate that the lands within the Project 8 were occupied from the late 17th century through the present day. The proposed below-grade excavations currently consist of areas of soil removal in the northwestern and southeastern portions of the 8 to a depth of 5 feet below grade to facilitate the proper implementation of the pilings and footings. The pilings will be hydraulically driven into the ground, and the depth of excavation will not exceed the depth of existing fill. Therefore, no intact soils and possible archaeological deposits will be impacted. And it's her recommendation that no further archaeology is warranted. And I think that that's very sensible. I believe that this report has been accepted, because I think that's the only way I would have been able to go and get it. You know,
Right.
like the reviewer, like I said, I can't go in and see the comments. But I think that this is, sensible, so I don't believe that the HRC needs to require any additional archaeology for this project.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because that was something that we, at the beginning of this, that was one of the first things we said is, this is very important. And so we worked with the design team and DBL to make sure that we've got, fill material that ranges anywhere from the first 6 to, 13 or 17 feet. And we said, under no circumstances do we want to go deeper than where that fill is, because, that's just going to be a problem. So.
Are there any other additional comments from either our presenters or to the commission, from the commissioners?
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and this is a very exciting program, and we look forward to watching you continue and move toward success. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion.
I'll second.
Hacker. We have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay?
That's good.
Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate your time and the conversation.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, we'll work on, putting together any
Okay, perfect.
Oh, and I meant to say, do you want to send everybody the report